Thank you all for joining us. Let me present you to the faculty for today's lecture. She'll be talking about how we can minimize plagiarism in research in academic writing. And the faculty is none other than Dr. Shilpee Aggarwal. Let me give a quick introduction of her. She has over 14 years of teaching experience. Her research areas include emotional intelligence, managerial effectiveness, and behavioral psychology. She has also presented and published several case studies in national and international journals. Thank you so much, ma'am, for being here today. Now, over to you.
All right, shall we start?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, so today I am Dr. Shilpee Aggarwal. I'll be talking about minimizing plagiarism in research. So first of all, when we talk about research and we talk about plagiarism, so we need to see that, why plagiarism is such an important issue. So today, the primary objectives of today's lesson will be how to reduce plagiarism, the word count, improving the referencing, originality reports. So I'll brief you about what kind of an originality reports, what it means to have an originality report, and making final adjustments to any assignment, a manuscript, a blog, a paper, thesis, any document which we have to get published or we have to put it for public use on the internet. So we have to make adjustments before the final submission of the document. So these are the primary objectives that we'll be looking forward to. Then, why do we look at plagiarism? So what? If I say, why should I bother? But does it really matter? Doesn't everyone plagiarize? What are the alternatives to plagiarism? If this is happening, why is this happening? Why should I do anything about plagiarism? But no, we have to pay attention to what is happening, and if at all, intentionally or unintentionally, I am plagiarizing, it is not good. We have to take care that we do not plagiarize. So it's important for us to understand what it means. So plagiarism is the representation of another author's language, thoughts, ideas, or expressions as one's own original work. Taking the words or ideas of another and using them without acknowledgement. I can take ideas from someone. There are so many topics that we research upon. There is literature available on internet. We use Google Scholar, we use different softwares, we use different websites, applications to, maybe gauge and gather information related to what I am thinking. Maybe I am connecting with variables which are new. The connection might be new, which in general terms we understand as a research gap or my contribution to the research. But if we look at those primary variables, where have they come from? We definitely go, we adhere ourselves to confining ourselves to different websites from where we get research papers. We get some information. So generally, it is not in itself a crime, but like counterfeiting fraud can be punished in a court for prejudices caused by copyright infringement. Similarly, violation of moral rights or torts. So in academia and industry, it is a serious ethical offense. So to plagiarize is a serious offense. We can't just take it lightly. So what? I can't think about it like that. What happened if I plagiarized, if I copied from somewhere? No, we cannot. Intellect is a precious property that people have. We can't just copy. So that is why we need to pay attention to what are we writing, from where are we writing. Have we taken somebody's ideas? If yes, we have to give the due credit of that intellectual property, of that intelligence, of that idea to the person from whom you have taken that idea. Now let's look at an example. So this is a source. Anyone can create a web page and publish their own ideas on the internet. Information you read on the internet is not always true. This is the case with fake news, where people make up news stories. So if this is the source from wherever I have picked this paragraph from, as an essay, if I'm as a student, I'm writing an essay and I'm writing the same thing, I have tried to make it up in a new way. I have tried to present it in a way which maybe doesn't seem to be exactly the same. Say, for example, I put it in my words. Anybody can produce a web page and put their own content on the internet, but not all the information you see on the internet is true. People publish made up information all the time. This is the case with fake news. Although, if we observe, so now, can you see why this counts as plagiarism? It is very, very important for us to know. How can somebody say that this is plagiarism? No matter I have paraphrased, I have tried to, quote the similar essence, the similar meaning in altogether different set of words. But yes, it is plagiarism because I have failed to give the credit to the person who wrote this. I have failed to acknowledge the source. From where did I get this information? So it's important for any student, any person who writes a manuscript, who writes a paper, who writes a thesis, who writes any document which is to be published, I have to give due credit. So if at all I write citation, so when I cite means I'm giving due credit to the person whosoever has given this information to me. I will cite that person. I will acknowledge that person. So now, as a common parlance, plagiarism, when I have been talking about plagiarism in a document, but it's very important for us to know that plagiarism does not just include text. It also includes music. It also includes diagrams. Diagrams is a very important component. Whenever we write some manuscript or a thesis, we tend to pick up diagrams from somewhere. But it is very important for us to know that if at all we directly pick up a diagram from a paper, it will come under the purview of plagiarism. I have to create or draw a diagram in the same manner, but I also have to cite or put a source. At the bottom end of any diagram, if you observe, there is always written the source. So I have to give credit to the person or the document from where I have picked up that document, that diagram. Similarly for software, similarly for websites, we cannot just put anything copying from anywhere. That is an ethical offense. Now, why do researchers plagiarize? That's very important for us to know. Maybe, I am not intentionally doing it. Maybe I'm thinking, okay, I'll give due credit to the person. I'll call him up and say, okay, fine, you did a great job. No, but that doesn't happen. So let's look at a few, maybe the motives behind which people plagiarize. Study pressure, yes, that can be. I have to complete my thesis in the stipulated time. I have to complete it. So when I say I have to complete it, that study pressure, that timeline, that deadline gives me or urges me to, quickly copy something from somewhere, cut, paste. That's, maybe that's the culture. The universities who, maybe teach individuals or students, say, for instance, there are a couple of universities who conduct their pre-PhDs. They conduct pre-PhD courseworks where they specifically teach the students that how do you maintain your information? How do you maintain that when you're picking up information from somewhere? How do you do that? Okay, disorganized research work is one of the very primary reasons why researchers plagiarize, because when we are not organized, we are not working in a sequence, when we have not planned our work meticulously, we happen to, it tends we tend to do this, that we quickly pick up something and do that. Lack of strict academic discipline. Like I just mentioned about a few universities who are, who have thought of teaching the students properly, the methodology, who are thinking of training their students in a proper way, where they teach them from the scratch that, how do you paraphrase, how do you rephrase, how you pick up the essence of a particular research paper and present it, rather than just exactly verbatim picking up some information. There can also be lack of understanding, which is understanding the seriousness of plagiarism. Maybe we think that it's not that big a thing, but no, it is. Careless attitude. We might think, oh, it's okay. I mean, we can do that. Who's catching hold of it? But no, that doesn't happen. Lack of referencing skills. If I'm unaware about what is the right way of referencing, there it can be a problem. Now, there is a term called copyright. Let's understand what is the difference between a copyright and a plagiarism. So, copyright is about protecting rights of creators of information. It's a very, there is a very significant difference between the two things. Copyright is applicable to licensed contents only, while plagiarism is applicable to both licensed and unlicensed contents. Things, material, information which are not licensed, they also come under the purview of plagiarism, whereas copyrights generally are related to the licensed ones. Plagiarism is a violation of academic norms, whereas plagiarism is an offense against the author, while copyright violation is offense against the copyright holder. Plagiarism is using someone else's work or ideas without giving due credit. Now we talk about the types of plagiarism, very, very important. First of all, if I say I wrote a paper, okay, so I think I wrote my thesis. I think that, I'm just copying from the document which I wrote. So what is the problem? But no, this comes under the category of self-plagiarism. There can be intentional plagiarism. There can be unintentional or accidental plagiarism. Now let's look at, delve deep into the meaning of each one of them. So we say self-plagiarism. Like I just mentioned, that I wrote my thesis. I pick up the information which I wrote in my thesis. I say, whatever I have written there, I can just simply copy and put it in a manuscript and present and publish. No, I can't do that. So copying material I have previously produced, you have previously produced, and passing it off as a new production, that is self-plagiarism. Writers often maintain that because they are the authors, they can reuse their own work as they please. It couldn't be defined as plagiarism since they are not taking any words or ideas from someone else. However, while the debate on whether self-plagiarism is possible continues, the ethics of self-plagiarism is significant, especially because self-plagiarism can infringe upon a publisher's copyright. Now, I would like to elaborate here. When I have published with someone, say, for example, I talk about a journal. If I have talked about any journal, maybe an ABTC or a Scopus, when I have published with them, so I have in a way signed a contract. I have signed a deal. I have signed a consent that when they have published in their journal, the rights go to them rather than the rights remain with me. So once my document is published in any journal, it becomes their property rather than I claiming it that it is still my property. Since now it is not my property alone. I am sharing that property apart from creating it. I'm sharing that property with the journal who published my document. So the rights also become, it becomes important for me to take permission from the publisher, or in other words, if we put it in this way, that I have to cite my publication, since when I'm writing the references, when I'm writing the bibliography, along with my name, the name of that journal will also come. That is how we understand what self-plagiarism would mean. The next is intentional plagiarism, or we say falsification, fabrication. Intentionally, I'm doing it. I'm fabricating. That is the intentional act of making up data or results and recording or reporting them. Falsification is manipulating research materials, equipments, or processes, or changing or omitting, suppressing data or results without scientific or statistical justification, such that the research is not accurately represented in the research record. This would include the misinterpretation of uncertainty during statistical analysis of data. Now, this is very important. Whenever I have to publish a quantitative research, I have a set of data which I'm utilizing to create a document. When I'm falsifying, I'm manipulating that information to create a document as per my whims and fancies. So that is falsification. I'm falsifying, I'm faking, I'm creating a document which is inaccurate, right? So I'm misinterpreting the records, I'm misinterpreting the statistical information. That's a very big offense. Okay, then fake peer reviews. At times, what happens is how people generally plagiarize in this context. If at all, I have, there are a couple of friends who, belong to a similar knowledge domain. So we say, you give me a good review, I'll also give you a good review. That's incorrect. We should not do that. And then another one is unintentional or accidental plagiarism. Failing to document to cite properly. I have not done it intentionally. I don't want to do a wrong thing. I don't want to do anything unethical. But yes, I have written something. I've copied it from somewhere. No matter I paraphrased, but I failed to cite. That's the case of unintentional or accidental plagiarism. So unfamiliar with international styles of documentation. Now, this is very important for people to understand that there are different styles, there are different formats, there are different styles of referencing. Say, for example, very, very popularly, we use APA, American publication styles. We use Harvard styling. We use, there are Canadian styles. So there are different referencing styles which people need to know. Then how do we quote? We have to verbatim, we have to pick up somebody's definition, say, for example. We generally, yes, we take it up as it is. But at the same time, we put it in double quotes. Double quotes means the software will generally will not pick up that the information which you have put in a double quote, because it is assuming, the software reads it like that, yes, this is acceptable norm. But at the same time, this is a limited option. You can't just put a double quote everywhere in the document. You have to limit it to a number of words. You have to limit it to at least just 2-3 lines barely. And also, it is very important for us to know that we have to specifically write, apart from the citation, we generally write the exact page number from where we have taken up that definition. Failing to use your own voice to present information or ideas. We must use our own words. We must use our own information, our own thought process to create an information. We may not know how to integrate ideas of others and document properly. If we have to put up information which we have taken from somebody, we have to put it into a different package. We can't just put it as it is. Taking the ideas of other writers and mixing them together and using minimal or careless paraphrasing would lead to plagiarism again. But we have to avoid that. We have to learn. These are various plagiarism softwares which are very popular. Urkund is the one which Urkund, Authenticate, Turnitin, Grammarly. Out of all of these, the most popular one is Turnitin. The others also are prevalent. People are using Urkund, Authenticate, Grammarly. Grammarly somehow is popular, or maybe it is the USP of Grammarly is to check grammar, to check the language. But although the premium version has an option of checking plagiarism, but yes, definitely, it's not the most recommended one. The most recommended one is Turnitin. Since, like I'm mentioning, that Turnitin is one of the most popular amongst the softwares, I will also discuss, how we utilize, or how what kind of documents do we see when we read a plagiarism document from Turnitin. So plagiarism is not a viable option. We must look forward to how we reduce it. So there are some publishing reports which are, which we must know. The 3 fundamental ethical principles that must be followed when using human subjects in research are respect for persons, protecting the autonomy of all people and treating them with courtesy and respect, and allowing for informed consent. Researchers must be truthful and conduct no deception. So we should not deceive anybody. Beneficence, the philosophy of do no harm while maximizing benefits for the research project and minimizing risks to the research subjects. Justice is the third one. Ensuring reasonable, non-exploitative, and well-considered procedures are administered fairly. The fair distribution of costs and benefits to potential research participants, and equally. So the Belmont report, which was published in 1978, it gave some ethics of publishing. So it mentioned about these 3 most important principles that we must follow when we are, as researchers. To keep copyright infringement to a lower limit, you must go through the 2 stages. We look at 2 primary stages. First is avoid plagiarism as much as we can. So how do we avoid? If we say we are first trying to prevent, second thing is it has happened. Intentionally, unintentionally, it has happened. So we will reduce or minimize. So first, let's look at how do we avoid. So first, we need to know plagiarism. Like what I've been talking about, so many things about plagiarism. We must know what it is, how it is possible to happen. Second important thing is we must try to write in our own words. Till the time, there is a new idea which I'm totally unaware about, I have to confine myself to some information which is available. But definitely, after reading that information, I have to take out the essence, frame it in my own words, and then present. Check similarity index. Similarity index is the term which is very, very commonly used for a percentage which is given through the softwares that check the plagiarism. And then check the content of paper. What material is given in the paper? Who are the people who have contributed to that particular manuscript? When I check who has put the information, from where am I picking up information? So I need to give the due credit to that content, from where am I picking. Now this is really important. To keep the copyright infringement to a lower limit, we must go through these stages. So first I talked about being aware. Second is how do we reduce? First is identifying. When we identify, okay, fine, this is the portion from where I have picked up information. I have to give the due citation. I have to paraphrase it. Or another option is, which I already talked about, is quotations. Now, quotations is a good option, but it is a very limited option. We must adhere ourselves, confine ourselves to a very limited portion, and specifically, we must take care that whenever we are using quotations, we are using quotation marks to write any text, we must put the exact citation along with the page number. So that will give the due, credibility to what I've written. Reducing plagiarism and the word count. So it is essential that we meet the necessary requirements for referencing and word count within every piece of written work that we submit. It is very important to keep full details of the information sources that we use when writing our assignments. So we need to include the information in the list of references. At the end of every manuscript, we put a list of references, which are also called bibliography. So we generally put all those places, which can be a website, it can be a research paper, it can be an article published on the internet, it can be an article published on any kind of social media. So, for example, we take up information from Harvard Business Review. We take up a case from any of the sites from where we can, even if we buy a case, we can't think that we bought the case and we can copy. We still can't copy. We have to give the reference. So if we do not include this information in our assessed work, then you may find that you fall foul of the code of practice on the use of unfair means. Similarly, we talked about the Turnitin. Now, Turnitin, when it gives an originality report, it sends me this kind of a document. So this is an excerpt from one of the documents. So when we say that, the similarity index, now I was talking about an originality report. Turnitin produces such a report where it has numbered and it is highlighted in different colors. This text has been copied from where? How do I know that? Now, if you observe, there is number 1 in the primary sources. This is primary sources. This information is 100% from, this entire information is from this source, which is wikipedia.org or an internet source. So this is called the originality report, and this is how it looks. So what we do is we pay attention to the portion which is highlighted. The portion which is highlighted, it means that it is already existing on the internet somewhere from where I have taken it as it is. So the first step would be to see how do I reduce it. So when I read this paragraph, I will try to pick up one line by one line. Each line will have to be framed in a different language so that although the material is still there, although I am, I have to write from where I have taken it, but it will not come under the purview of plagiarism, or Turnitin software will not put it as a plagiarized report or a plagiarized document. Now this one again, if we see, similarly, if we say spelling errors or synonyms or change of synonyms, generally what people do is we change, similar words. If we observe this document, this word change, insert change is not highlighted here. Whereas if we see insert changes, so we have modified this word somehow, insert changes, insert change. So this is not being highlighted. So even if we modify this in a way where we, at times put different spellings, but we can't write incorrect spellings. That is also something which we have to pay attention to. Apart from that, we have to put, we can use synonyms. We can change those words into synonyms, but that too, again, that is to be done in a limited way. Now, if we observe the similarity index, which was 100%, has come to 94%. When I say that it has changed to 94%, but at the same time, since this entire thing is under the purview of a Turnitin plagiarized document, I have to transform it completely to reduce the percentage that is of similarity index. Now we look at an example. If we have to, see that how can I reduce or minimize the plagiarism, this is a nice way of doing it. I have a document, I have some information, I will back translate. I will translate into an opposite way. I will go from the primary to recent or recent to primary in case of citations also. That's one way of, very, very importantly, that works very well when anywhere we have to, remove the plagiarism, or maybe when we are framing a document, we can do that at the first instance. So when I say back translation, say for example, I bought groceries at the supermarket in the city on Saturday morning. They asked an employee where there was a fries because my friend and I were at a party. So if you look at the instance where, we had the reporting. So, and I asked one of the staff there where the fries were because my friend and I were having a party. So I have reframed this sentence in a different way. So I said, no, I am looking for chips for the party. So the source is given. The staff smiled at me and showed me an outdoor insect hunter. Now, how do I put it? The staff member smiled at me and showed me an outdoor bug zapper. I modified the outdoor insect hunter into a bug zapper. In the end, finally, instead of finally, we all surrender and leave each other. In the end, we both gave up and walked away from each other. So the same sentence, although the meaning is same, finally we all surrender and leave each other, has been put into, in the end, we both gave up and walked away from each other. It doesn't matter. We don't have the party step. So if we break the sentence into pieces, it doesn't matter. It didn't really matter. We don't have the party's chips, that we didn't have any fries for the party. But somehow, but somehow I feel really failed has been put as, but somehow is the same. I felt like a real failure. So I failed has been transformed into a word like I felt like a real failure. No matter I have taken up information, no matter I have taken up an idea from this paragraph, but at the same time, I have transformed it, converted it, re-paraphrased, or maybe paraphrased it into a different set of words so that this is saved to be called as a plagiarized document. Now uploading the assignments. Now when we say that, I have completed the document, I have written it in a particular way, I have to present it. So before doing that, it's very important wherever we are sending a document, we must follow the submission guidelines. So under the, opportunity, under the different set of rules that they have mentioned on their website, it is important for any author, it is important for a person, a researcher, to follow those guidelines carefully. If you fail to submit your work correctly, for example, you do not use Sturgeon correctly. Okay, so any software, say for that matter, then you may be penalized or get 100% score for the assessment. I talked about an idea where I talked about this, that, why does it matter? How does it matter? Does it really matter? Yes, it does. How it matters is that when my information has been put, I submitted it without bothering that, okay, I'll see. I tried to, paraphrase, I tried to cite and all, but I didn't pay, attention to it very carefully. The information that I submitted, which is incorrect, has been added up to the cloud of the softwares. Now, in my name, if the journal has seen that, I have submitted a document which is plagiarized, or maybe there is a percentage generally acceptable as per UGC, the acceptable limit is 10% of Turnitin. It's very rare to happen. It is generally, there can be 5% also. but between 5 and 10 is a very prominent figure. Beyond that, it seldom happens that you will get a percentage or somebody will tell you that an acceptability level of similarity index is more than 10%. Some universities, maybe they have 20% also, but that's rare to happen. So when I have submitted that document which shows me a percentage more than the acceptable limit, like I said 10%, say for example, so that information in my name has gone to the cloud of the journal of the software that I gave a plagiarized document. So we must allow plenty of time, say at least a couple of hours, to use Turnitin, to submit our work correctly, to make sure that we leave, we have plenty of time before the deadline. We should not do that at all. We should be very careful about this. That if at all I have to submit tomorrow, today, I'm finalizing my things and writing down my document and looking at the references and everything, and then at the last hour, I'm paying attention to, I check it from Turnitin. How will that happen? So that is a big problem. That might give a big trouble to you. So to avoid that, it's very good for us to give ourselves good enough time before the deadline so that we can carefully remove all these problems and then go ahead with a fair system of acceptability, norms, limits to create a good originality report. Also, we must remember that there may be many other students queuing up to submit their assignment. So if at all, we are rushing towards a deadline, there might be a computer failure, there might have backup copies, we must keep backup copies. So it's safe to submit days earlier before deadline in order to allow necessary adjustments, especially with respect to the plagiarizing softwares, with respect to the similarity index, and creating an originality report. Now, let's look at how we, understand how we finally look at those few very important points that will help us, in understanding the context, in minimizing the problems of plagiarism. The first thing is understanding the context. So students must understand the context of writing before starting to write. So before I start to write, I must think about what is that something which I want to present. Understanding the context can help us discover more topics to research and write. The bigger nexus of information that I carry forward to, I look forward to, that will help me in reducing the problems which can come in the way of writing. Understanding the context will also prevent plagiarism in writing. So if I'm clear, say for example, when we do a literature, so primarily, plagiarism problems, they are prevalent in terms of literature review, because literature review is the one, say if we are writing a thesis, we are writing a 40 pages literature review. So when we have to write a 40 pages literature review, we have to be very careful of what kind of information are we picking up from what source. So is that, number one, is that a credible source? Is that information cited well? Is the information given, properly as citation, in what format? I pick up that information and paraphrase it. I take out the meaning. I understand the meaning before presenting it to the audience, to the readers, right? So to understand the context is a very, very important task, which we must do when we have to start writing our documents. Second important thing, the reference mentioning. Rewriting the quotes from different sources while writing a thesis or a paper, in my own words, will definitely help me avoid plagiarism. Or just use the quotes as they are written on the paper or source. So from wherever I am picking up that information, I have to see, is it verbatim? How do I want it? How do I want to present that information? I want to present it in a verbatim way. I put it into quotes, I give the proper citation. I can, synthesize. I can, write it in a way which expresses a similar meaning. I also connect a particular variable with many other variables, with many other ideas. And with those ideas, I will also see that, in what way can I present that information? In what way can I connect with that concept, with the thoughts that I have? How do I wish to proceed with that? So that's the way of doing it. And then is citing. So using the references from other authors or websites and share the courtesy towards them. Very, very, very important. Okay, so when we have to cite, we see that in what format am I putting it? How do I, justify the acknowledgement that I am giving the due credit to the person from where I picked up that information? And I have to praise the reference to justify the statement or the writing and use it as proof of my theory. Say, for example, if I talk about a theoretical concept, I am proving a theory. So there can be two ways of proving a theory. I can either contradict, I can say, okay, fine. So this is the theory which somebody gave. I, maybe do not agree with this. If I say I do not agree with this, so will I think, oh, I don't agree. So since I don't agree, so I don't need to mention the name. No, that will not happen. I still have to mention the name. Even if I agree or I don't agree, I contradict or I add up to a theory. In any case, if I'm mentioning or merely even, putting in the name of the person positively or negatively or in a new way or in addition to it, I want to say something. Still, as a researcher, it is my moral duty to give the due credit to the person, despite of the fact that I am disagreeing with the idea. So I can just not think that since I disagree, I don't need to cite. I still have to cite, I still have to mention the name. Okay, so using the references from anywhere, from a website, from any author, from a blog, from a case study, from a website article, from a social media article, I must mention that. Using my own words. That is one thing which is, primarily the most sought after thing to do. When I look forward to reducing or minimizing plagiarism or avoiding plagiarism, in the first place, that becomes, an imperative that yes, I must follow doing this. So whenever we start reading papers, the first thing, if at all, we think about, so there are people, in the session who are new researchers. There are people in the session who are, existing researchers who are in research for a couple of years. So whenever, if we have dealt with this thing already, so we would know. And for new researchers, we would, whenever we go to our supervisors, the supervisor will first of all tell you to read the literature. Second step will be to synthesize what you've read in a paper in your own words. So they generally tell you to write a paragraph or so. What you understood from what is presented in a paper, you put it in your own words, or maybe create Excels. That's a very popular way of writing literature, of understanding the literature, so to say, and we present it in that way. When we say that, we are putting that information in my own vocabulary, in my own set of words. So whereas if I pick up sentences as it is, because all the universities, they follow the norms, all the journals, they follow the norm of, or the ethical practices, they are big issues of ethical practices. So to avoid that, the best thing to do is to rewrite it in your own words. If at all we learn the knack of doing that, that is the best thing to happen. That is the most viable option which we must adhere to. And that's the most sought after which we must do that. Then is managing citations. So managing the citation used in our papers is a very important part of writing a paper. So use unique identifiers, like, say, for example, we've heard about ISBN numbers, so which are international standard book numbers. So books which are published, they have an ISBN number. Information books, maybe e-books, have a generally, or some documents, say we have conference proceedings. So those conference proceedings, they will have a serial number. So if they have an ISSN number, that's called an international standard serial number, or digital object identifier for references. Now, these days, this DOI is really very popular. Okay, so this DOI number, if you observe, in all the references, along with the, irrespective of the format or the style of citation, there is a DOI number which is mentioned. So the meaning is digital object identifier. Another important, mention is the ORCID ID. So these days, the ORCID ID is very, very popular. So people would know what kind of work you have done through your ORCID ID, because that's an identification, a unique identification number, which is given to researchers, which people create for themselves, and they add up to the body of their information related to what kind of work we have done. So DOI, ISBN number, ISSN numbers, they are all unique identifiers. So wherever we are quoting somebody's work, wherever we are quoting somebody's information, so we generally utilize these numbers, these unique numbers, to cite people, to manage our citations whenever we are giving due credit to the people from where we have got ideas. Then last and the very, very important thing is using a plagiarism checker. So we've talked about many softwares. We've talked about different ways in which the softwares, and one more, this is I would say a brownie tip to everybody. So how does the software catch hold of you? So when I write a line, so there are, in a group of 6 to 7 words. So the software will generally catch hold of you when you've, written 6 to 7 words in a sequence, all together, as it is from any system, any document which is published on internet. So you have to try to break that chain. You have to try to, when you even paraphrase, even if you think that there is some information which you want to be there as it is, so pick up that the most significant few less than 5 words which you can put together, but always put a different set of words at the end of every 6 words. So the chain of 6 words should not be broken. So a chain of 6 words has to be broken. So when we break that chain, that's where we clearly can minimize plagiarism. When we use these softwares, like using plagiarism checker before submitting a paper, is the best way to avoid plagiarism. But at the same time, rather than, I would recommend that, rather than looking at it after we've submitted a document, while we are preparing our manuscript, it is better, that we try to avoid doing those things that will reduce the effort of redoing the entire thing all over again. So instead of going to the end first and then, coming back all over again to the entire document, in the process of creating that document, if we try to follow the basic norms of, taking out the meaning, yes, but doing it, rewriting it in our own words, that is a better and the most recommended way. So when we put it in a plagiarism software, so there are various online applications. Okay, so they can be free, they can be paid. So we can choose any kind of plagiarism checkers. But generally, if my recommendation would be, the library systems they generally have. Say, for example, my university, the library offers students uh, an option that we can submit a document, a manuscript to the library system. We can get it checked for plagiarism. And since, at the submission of thesis, we also have to produce a certificate from the library that the document that I have submitted, a thesis or any important document that I've submitted, is not, unethical. I have not done anything unethical to create this document. I have not done anything unethical to create this particular document. So it's very important for me, for anybody, for any researcher, to confine themselves to create documents, which are fair, which are created in a way which definitely, adds to the body of knowledge in the true sense of the term, adds to somebody's its value addition rather than it's just merely copying or writing from somewhere, or and that too, without giving due credit to somebody's ideas, adhering to some kind of unfair means. So strictly, a strong recommendation to the budding researchers, to people who are still in the process of learning to create good manuscripts. Rather, I would say everybody, no matter how many years of research you have, at every stage we keep learning. We can't say that learning has stopped. We can't say that after this we don't need to learn. So in that case, as far as reducing or minimizing plagiarism is concerned, I would say, you know, writing it in our own way, writing it in our own style, writing it in our own words is the best thing to do to remove plagiarism. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, ma'am. That was a very amazing lecture. Thank you so much for being here with us and giving this sharing this knowledge with us. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. You can subscribe to our channel for more free workshops and lectures. It will be posted here. Other than that, you can send all your queries regarding this lecture on our email ID that's given in the description box. Thank you.